So, hello and welcome to In Conservation With. My name is David Lindo. I am also known as the Urban Birder. This whole In Conservation With series is sponsored by CJ Wildlife as well as Leica Sport Optics. So thank you guys. Today, I have a very, very nice guest whose surname I've been practicing for the last 5 minutes. It's Arjan Dwarshuis.
Excellent.
Okay.
I think you improved over the last 5 minutes with the pronunciation of my surname. So that's a keeper, yeah.
Okay. Arjan has written a book, and this book's called The Big Year That Flew By. And it's all about his sort of escapade, his whole year he spent to eventually beat the world record in terms of numbers of species seen in a year. Absolutely amazing. And so we're going to talk about that tonight. But you know what I want to do first? I'd like to very crudely, because I haven't got it set up, we just basically agreed this 30 seconds before pressing the record button or letting you guys in. I would like to just quickly show you a couple of clips that Arjan has had shots of his adventures, because I think they really encapsulate how he actually did this whole thing. So I'm going to go to my actually, that's a good point. I need to find my screen so that I can actually show you this, because it's really quite interesting to look at. And firstly, what I'd like to do is show you the trailer for his actual whole escapade, and I suppose it kind of is a good trailer for the book. I'm sure you'll be probably making a film out of this, won't you?
Yes.
So guys, actually, let me just make sure that I have pressed the right buttons here. Make sure we've got sound, share sound. Okay, so I'm hoping now I'll be able to share. Oh,
I think it's working.
Yeah, sorry about this, guys. It's just right. You can see my screen good. So let's see if we can do this. Can you see my screen, everyone?
Yes.
Good. Okay, I'm hoping that we'll be able to see this and hear this properly. So here we go. You hear it? I must say, I think it's so beautifully shot, that intro, beautifully shot, and also I like the end when you got the various breakdowns of bird, land, Netherlands. Very good.
And another.
Pardon?
I appreciate it. Thanks.
No problem. It's very beautiful. And I'm going to show my screen one more time, hopefully to show you. Can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Okay, to show you this clip, which is basically you rushing off to try and find this amazing bird that I've never seen before, and I'm sure many people in this room haven't seen before, but here you go.
Op die berg, daar zit een grot. En in die grot, of in de opening van die grot, daar broedt yellow-necked picatartes. Toch wel een van mijn...
I think you only have sound, David.
De picatartes soort op alle...
Say again?
I think you only have sound, no video.
There's no video.
No.
Oh, that's a shame because I got a video here. Okay, well if there's no
Give it another
sound,
go.
pardon?
Give it another go.
Okay,
Work before.
okay. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, got it. Yeah, there it is.
That's it.
Okay. Some of it's in Dutch, but the crucial bits are in English.
Maar op die berg, daar zit een grot. En in die grot, of in de opening van die grot, daar broedt yellow-necked picatartes. Toch wel een van mijn meest gewilde soorten ooit. De picatartes scoort op alle punten. Dus A, hij is uniek. Hij is bizar in zijn gedrag en in zijn voorkomen. 3, hij is extreem mooi. Ik ben wel ook zenuwachtig. Weet je wel, de kans is zeer groot dat ik hem ga zien. Maar weet je weet het nooit.
So behind me is the Picatartes, a prehistoric looking bird, nesting on the cliff face, and we are the first ever to get footage of this bird.
Echt sublieme waarneming. Ik denk waarneming van het jaar.
Now, how exciting was that? I mean, it's just incredible to see such an unusual looking bird, and also to see it at such close quarters. And it looks like it's got a leather stocking over its head with its ears exposed.
Yeah, this was for me one of the best sightings of my big year, and in fact of my lifetime. And also because I'm a huge fan of David Attenborough, you could see me impersonating him, of course, a bit sarcastically. But he, like David Attenborough's career, was launched into the limelights in the 50s when he was shooting Zoo Quest. Do you remember that show, David?
I'm not that old, but yeah, I remember. I know of it. Yeah.
So he followed Jack Lester, the curator of the I think the Museum of Natural History in London, and during his quest for like avian and mammalian rarities, and it like he was like producing behind the scenes, and he was like Jack Lester was the presenter of the show, but then he got sick, and in fact, at the end, he even died because of some rare tropical disease that he caught in the West African jungle. And then, but they've prepared everything already for this for filming. So they let Attenborough be the new presenter of the show. So, like, there he was in Sierra Leone, and this was in fact in Ghana, but he was in Sierra Leone. like, and you saw these black and white images of him next to this cliff face with this bizarre like house swallow like nest of the Picatartes, and then he talked about the prehistoric looking bird, the Picafates, and those like that clip went all over the world and actually launched his career. And here I was, like 65 years later, also like trying to launch my career in birding. And I also had a camera crew with me, and I was, like I had a bit of feeling like I was following in David Attenborough's footsteps, and then seeing this amazing bird in this immaculate plumage. So, and this, like you said, this bizarre, like it looks like a latex mask. It's fantastic.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd love to be in that situation, following Mr. Attenborough's footsteps in that way. Fantastic. Now, we're here to talk today about your big year, but let's actually talk about you, because some people may not actually know of you. How are you, and where are you, firstly?
Well, I'm actually, well, if it was yesterday, it would have been troublesome because I just recovering from the flu. But who isn't this time of year? So, and I'm in my my home in Amsterdam, like sitting opposite my girlfriend, who you cannot see at this moment. And yeah, it's nighttime here, and we just had dinner.
Yeah, she features a few times in the book, I noticed as well.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that when she hugged you, where was it, in Madrid, and said, "I could hold you longer, but you stink to high heaven."
Yeah,
that's a true girlfriend who tells you the truth. I like the sound of that lady.
And you must imagine, like, I learned one thing during my big year, and that is that you can wear the same boxer for a week and then turn it inside out and wear it for another week, and you can do the same thing with your t-shirt. So, and I think she didn't shower for a week then, so I cannot blame her.
Let's talk about you as a kid. How did you get into this whole thing of birding? Because I was reading the book, and by the way, the book, which unfortunately I haven't got, I think it's behind you maybe, but I haven't got a copy in my hand to show anyone.
I have only the Dutch version, because the English version is due May 4th this year. May
the 4th be with you.
Yeah.
But basically I read in the book, and by the way, I didn't read Dutch, I read an English version. I'm terrible when it comes to languages, but anyway, I read in the English version, but you very kindly sent me online, that you were kind of berated, you were made fun of as a kid by your fellow sort of peers for your interest in birds, and the fact that you you didn't really have the same interest in sport, music, or even women at the time. So
it was all birds.
So tell me, how did it all start?
Well, I think I've been like obsessed by nature for as long as I can remember. Basically, all my oldest memories like are surround like something in nature, and especially birds. And like something like that I can remember well. I grew up by the beach in Scheveningen under Dutch name that you cannot pronounce probably.
No, I can't.
No, and it's a coastal city, like village near The Hague. And I grew up there, and I went to the beach a lot as a little kid. And of course, I went to look for shells along the coastline. And my friends did the same thing, but when they found these shells, they would like give them to their mother, and then they would end up in a drawer somewhere, or end up in the trash bin. But in my case, I had this this closet with all the different drawers, and I made like wooden, we call it, to separate the different compartments.
Yeah.
And I numbered all those compartments, and that's where I put those shells. And then I looked up the name and the Dutch name and the scientific name in a book about the seashells of the North Sea. And I wrote everything down in a little book. So, and then I was like 7, 8 years old already. So I was already like fascinated by nature, I think more than other kids. But eventually, like birds are the most most visible part of nature in the Netherlands. And the Netherlands is fantastic for watching migratory birds. And Scheveningen, where I grew up, it's one of the best places to watch birds. And there's a big birding community. So, well, that's how I got hooked onto birding. But my life changed completely when I was, I think, I just turned 12 in August 1998. And I discovered like that there was actually something like a migratory post, and you could be on a with a telescope on a harbor head and then count migratory birds, and that opened my eyes. And from that point on, I was like counting migratory birds every day, before school, after school, and a lot as well during school. That's why I probably didn't make it through that year at school.
So I guess that interest also, I mean, especially with migratory birds, must have opened your mind to the idea that there's a whole world out there. These birds are coming from somewhere and going to somewhere else. It must have opened your mind to that as well.
Yeah, definitely. That was one part of it. And also another part of it is that I met all these bird watchers older than me that traveled all over the world to see all these amazing birds that I never heard of. So I heard like amazing stories of Peru and Papua New Guinea. And then when I was 15, I decided it's time to travel on my own. So with a friend of mine, like a couple of years older than I was, we booked like an all-inclusive trip to Alanya in Turkey. I told my mom we wouldn't leave the like hotel grounds and the surrounding of the hotel. But actually we arrived. We didn't spend one night in the hotel. We took a night bus all the way to the eastern border with Iraq and Iran. And then we hitchhiked for 2 weeks looking for Caspian snowcocks and Caucasian black grouse and birds like that. So also the travel part was like, I was pretty young when I started with that.
That's amazing. I mean, I didn't start traveling literally for birding until I became the urban birder, which was 15 years ago. So I was a late developer. And I think a lot of people now, I mean, the world's opened up a lot. We're going to talk about travel later, actually, in terms of all of this, because there's been various people who have done this sort of big sort of bird years, and some of them have been criticized for their carbon footprints and stuff. But we'll talk about that a bit later. What I want to ask you now is, why did you suddenly have, or not even suddenly, but why did you decide to do this? And also, was the death of your beloved grandmother just before you started, was that an inspiration for you as well?
Yeah, well, I've always wanted to do like a World Big Year since I heard of the term World Big Year. Like it's, I found out when I was in the Peruvian Andes traveling. A friend of mine told me while we were shivering from the blistering cold on the top of the roof of a truck, like painstakingly slow, making it across the like a 4,000 meter pass in the Andes at nighttime. And he said, was James Clements, did he feel that way in 1989? Said, who's James Clements and what did he do? Well, he's the world record holder in bird watching. In 1989, he saw 3,600 and something birds in a year, and it was a huge adventure. And I thought, wow, I was back then, I was like 18 or 19 years old. I thought, well, that sounds like an amazing adventure. I want to do that one day. So that it became like a childhood obsession, like a boy's dream. And I thought about it, like, but then gradually like went more to the background. And then you had Ruffin Allen, friends of yours, I think, Ruffin Allen Davies. Well, they like put the bar, raised the bar a bit in 2008. And I still thought, well, I can still like break that record in like traveling, like I always travel, like hitchhiking. And then, of course, when I thought, no, I'm really gonna do it in 2014, I decided I would do it in 2016. And then like 5 minutes later, after I tweeted that I would do Big Year in 2016, I found out like this American, Noah Stryker, will do a big year in 2015. And well, you all know that story. He ended up seeing 6,042 birds. So I had to step up my game. So yeah, that's how I, like a very short version of how I started with the idea of doing a big year. But and then with regards to my grandma, that was a bit complicated, of course, because very like a month or a couple of months before I would start my big year, my grandma became sick. She got cancer, and I was really close with my grandma. And actually, she said, "Well, when you're doing this big year, you have to keep on going. You cannot come back if I die." But of course, I would have come back for my grandmother's funeral. But then in the end, she died just before my big year, and I was able to speak at her funeral like a week before I left, or 2 weeks before I left. And then, yeah, it was quite an emotional thing, and well, something I fought back at during my travels that year. But yeah, it was a special moment, as if she would have, like, if she was reluctant to, like, give me any setbacks during that year. That was quite almost spiritual. You can remember of imagine.
I bet she would have been very proud of you in terms of what you did.
Thanks.
But okay, someone watching this in the future or online, what have you, and thinking to themselves, I want to do this. How the hell do you plan such a thing? You know, where do you start? Where do you end? You know, where do you be? You know, what time of year are you in Africa or whatever? How do you work that out?
Well, of course, I had the benefit of Noah traveling a year before me. So I whenever I had the chance, I looked at his blog and his list he kept on Audubon, the website, and I would, like, because I booked my first tickets like 5 to 6 months before I left, so I was able to tweak some things in the itinerary. And since I had traveled a lot already, I had quite a good idea of where, like, the biodiversity hotspots in the world were found. And I had this book, Endemic Bird Areas of the World, which I got as my parents gave to me when I was, like, I think when I turned 18, as 18, present for my 18th birthday. And I, like, studied that book every night. So I had a very good idea of where to go. And I developed this theory that you could, like, make an itinerary, build an itinerary where you see most of the migratory birds on their wintering grounds. So those things were important. And of course, I found out that if you plan well, you can do certain areas really fast. You can be able to see most of the species there. So that was also something that helped a lot. And of course, but the main thing when doing a big year, because, well, if you visit Madagascar for the first time, or Papua New Guinea, try to bird there on your own. It's almost impossible. You will need a month to adjust to all the sounds and know all the birds around you. So you are really dependent on local guides, local experts. So, but those local experts, the best local guides, of course, they are fully booked in the main season, like in the high season. So I try to, like, plan my year so that I would visit certain areas just after or just before the peak season, so that those very good guides had time to guide me, and thought, well, you know, I have time off anyhow, and I could really use the promo. So, because I, of course, wrote about them guiding me in my blog, I wrote a book eventually, and they could, like, have promo via my social media and my documentary. So that is how I, like, try to. So I planned for 1.5 years, and I wrote, like, thousands of emails, literally thousands, to guides, travel agencies, lodges, birders around the world, to, like, sweet talk them into helping me. Because of course, if you do everything for the normal price, you will end up paying, yeah, maybe 200,000 euros or something. And in the end, I spent like 65,000 euros, which is still a lot, but well, we had a lot of, I also found a lot of sponsors, and I got a book deal, and I landed some money for my dad. And in the end, I was able to finance the thing, all of it.
So you need to be, you can't just walk out your door and just say, well, I'm off. You need to have it meticulously planned. And it's really good that you managed to get people to sponsor you and to give you, you know, stuff for free, because that must take some doing. I mean, I was reading in your book though, that you got a bit ripped off in Papua New Guinea, didn't you?
Yeah, that was one of the most scary moments of my big year. Maybe it was all in my head. So we arrived at, you probably mean that when we arrived in Mount Hagen, eh?
It's when the lady said that her husband would take you out.
So we had arranged transportation to the Kummel Lodge, which is like, this is for everyone watching. If you ever have the chance to visit this place, it's magic. You have this lodge in the cloud forest at about 3,000 meters altitude, all moss and ferns and orchids. And then they have a bird feeding table, which is about 5 meters in length, covered with moss, and they put some papayas and stuff down there on it. And then every morning you have not sparrows and blackbirds, but you have forest rails, tiger parrots, birds of paradise, all coming to that table to feed. So it's a really, really awesome place. So we really want to go there, but so we arranged transportation. But of course, it's Papua New Guinea and it was low season. So we arrived, nobody was there. And you must imagine the airport of Mount Hagen, it looks like a scene from Prison Break. So you have these, it's fenced off, and you have people in like very big guys with no shirt on, like whistling to you and like shouting, and like it is not advised to walk out of Mount Hagen airport on your own or just grab a taxi. So we went up to this lady, asked, maybe, do you know someone who can, maybe like a trustworthy person that could maybe take us to the Kummel Lodge? Said, yeah, we can make a couple of phone calls. My husband can take you. So couple like half an hour later, this truck pulled up, looked like something that the A-team had built. It almost looked like a like a fortified Toyota Land Cruiser with actually bars on the front window and the side window. It was these two guys, huge guys, chewing betel nut, and they said, we can take you up there. And they were talking in like a pidgin, speaking a pidgin dialect as we were like driving uphill. And like we couldn't understand much of it, but we literally heard the bags or the words money and bags all the time. So I was thinking, oh no, we're gonna end up dead in a ditch or gonna get robbed. So I was like trying to be tough, you know, sound tough. So I talked about, yeah, I'm been a boxer for a couple of years in the Netherlands, and and Max, the guy who was traveling with me, also said, yeah, we practice martial arts, and we so we tried to be like a bird, like pretending to be bigger than he is. That's what we did, and in the end. We stopped at the gates of Kummel Lodge. I was really relieved, but then they wouldn't let us out yet. They said, well, you better give us a big tip because we now know where you guys staying. And so in the end, so I had to give him like my remaining dollars, like another $40 because it already cost like $120 to drive up. So in the end, I think we got lucky because those guys were definitely not really friendly. So yeah, that was a bit scary, definitely. Yeah,
it sounds like those guys were not playing. No. I enjoyed all of your encounters around the world. I mean, it's, for me, reading that, it just makes me want to get out there and see some of these birds. I mean, you talked about Sri Lanka, and I've been there and I've seen the Serendib scops owl.
Oh, you did. Nice.
Can you tell the lovely people, the Zoomers here, plus the people in the future who'll be watching this, about your experience with the Serendib scops owl?
Yeah, so that was one. So of course, you have during a big year, you want to see as many birds as possible. That's basically what you do a year long. And of course, I developed I had a system where I had to see about 18 or 16.8 new birds every day to beat Noah's record. So every bird counts, but some birds count more than others. And of course, those are the beautiful, rare, endangered, and usually endemic birds. And so one of them, of course, was the Serendib scops owl. And there was, with these birds, there's always a cool story. So it was discovered very recently, I think even in this decade, by I think a guy called Deepak Varakoda. That was the researcher who heard this bird, looked for it for years, and then finally was able to see it. And he found out it was this new owl. It's incredibly rare, only a couple of hundred breeding pairs probably in the world. And yeah, so we arrived in the Sinaraja forest, that's the name. And we had this, like in the Sinaraja forest, you have these fantastic local guys who know every, well, you've been there probably because you've seen Serendib scops owl, right? Yeah, so we were birding all day with this guy. And well, another amazing thing in Sinaraja are these huge mixed feeding flocks with Sri Lankan blue magpies and all these fantastic other endemics. And then after this tiresome but wonderful day of birding, this guy took us like crawling behind him into some like dense vine tangle, and he pointed up, and there we saw this beautiful little, like very cute little owl with this pill face, and then we saw this fantastic Serendib scops owl.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I saw it, the guide that we had went out the night before, and in the dark, you know, located the bird and sat with it until dawn.
No way.
So that he knew exactly where it was. So that was amazing. And as you say, it's a special bird only recently discovered.
Yeah, for me in generally speaking, one of my favorite birds out there are owls. And actually but I really enjoy it most when it's a nocturnal search for an owl, because nocturnal owl search has all the aspects of like global birding, the tension, the weight. It tests your nerves and your and then this adrenaline kick when you suddenly hear it, and that's only the start of the chase. And then it, like you chasing through this dark forest, and then finally seeing such amazing birds in your torchlight is nothing can compare to that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Out of interest, what was Java like? Because Java is a place I've always, as a kid, thought I'd love to go there. And plus, there's a species of bird called the Javan lapwing, which apparently hasn't been
extinct. Yeah.
Well, possibly. It's not been seen
probably.
since the 40s. But
I don't really,
you would know because you've been there. I haven't been there.
I would be really, really surprised if that bird's still around, because it's been extinct for over half a decade. And for instance, the guide I was with on Java, Caleb, he is one of the best, really, really best guides I've ever met. One of the best birders ever. So if you ever go to Java, try to contact Caleb Jordan. He was guy is like X-ray eyes, but he birds like they bird in the Western Palearctic, looking for rarities, exploring new areas, and he birded every corner of Java. And if he can't find that bird, I believe it's gone.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interest for those who don't know. It's an interesting looking species. It's brown. It's like it's a lapwing. It's a plover, but it's brown. You know,
No.
Chocolate brown. It's incredible. I've always, it's captivated me. But listen, I'm a birder, and many of the people watching are birders too. And my problem is that if I go somewhere like Colombia or Peru, after about 200 species, I've forgotten what I've seen. I don't know what they're called. I get frustrated. I'm writing down a name of a bird, and someone else says something. Oh, there's something else there.
That is really funny, because like my girlfriend is sitting opposite of me. She is like really laughing now, because literally this happened. Like Camilla was traveling with me in Peru during my big year for 3.5 weeks. and it was there was the most crazy, fast-paced part of the trip. We saw over 1,000 species in just over 3 weeks there, and then Camilla would say after 2 weeks, that's the most beautiful tanager I've seen yet. Like, this is the best bird. I said, like, 2 weeks ago we saw 20 of these, but she couldn't remember. It was simply too fast-paced.
Yeah. Well, my question is, I mean, I don't know if I could do what you did, if I'm honest, because I wouldn't remember what I've seen, number one.
Mm.
So how did you keep, a record? And
Yeah.
then number two, did it not frustrate you going to all these amazing countries and seeing these incredible habitats that are left and be there literally for 10 minutes and then have to rush off again?
No, it is like, it sounds really fast, but and some places like Java we talked about, I had only like 3 days, because then you have to make choices and you have to work fast. But like Peru, I had more than 3 weeks traveling through that country, birding non-stop. So and we're talking about 18 new birds every day. So if you break that down, there's quite some time to look at these birds. And some birds actually, like in the beginning, goes really fast. If you arrive in the neotropics in Suriname, or I arrived there in the beginning of July, everything was new. It was really fast paced. And even though I birded in Suriname before, and a lot of times in South America, it was still sometimes hard to comprehend. But, when you see that bird over and over again in Brazil, and then again in Peru and Ecuador, you become familiar with it. And in the end, you start even remembering the sounds. So, of course, now going back there, I cannot remember, to be honest, every tyrannulet, let alone every sound of every tapaculo that I heard during my trip. But well, I can remember all those like more like colorful and well-defined species. So that helps, like spending a lot of time in a certain region and preparing really well. So I prepared really well, studied all these bird books for 1.5 years. And when it comes to birds, that also helps a lot. Not with other things, unfortunately. Well, recipes for cooking, that's my other passion. And birds, I have a bit of a photographic memory. Not a real photographic memory, but I can remember recipes that I cooked like a year ago. I can still remember all the ingredients. And I have the same with birds. I can remember, yes, I remember when I saw that bird 10 years ago in exactly that bend of the Manu Road. Yeah. So yeah, that helped.
You obviously got a very acute mind for all of this, because a lot of birders I know, it's like, I've got friends who are into football and they can tell you who scored what, when, or who, they can tell you. And I'm like, really? What, 50 years ago? You remember?
Exactly, it's like that.
But then when I think about it, when I translate it to what I do, I think, actually, yeah, I remember when I saw my first Sabine's gull, but then there's others I have no clue. But for me, firstly, how did you record all this? How do we know that you actually saw these birds?
Yeah, so of course you cannot record every sound you hear and photograph every bird. It's simply that's simply impossible, because you have mixed species flocks, and sometimes it goes really fast, especially in the lowland rainforests of South America, Southeast Asia, and Africa, and Papua New Guinea. And sometimes you have a bird skulking in the undergrowth and you're just able to see it, but you cannot photograph it. So I think there are no rules when it comes to doing a big year, because in the ABA they have rules, but World Big Year, it was only James Clements and then Ruffin Allen, Noah, and I, whoever did it. So but what I think Noah did as well is that everywhere you have a second opinion, like a knowledgeable local guide, or a really knowledgeable local birder traveling with you. So everywhere in those 366 days, that's also something I planned it with in a leap year, so that I have an extra day. But I had a local birder or a guide with me, and then still, even till this day, because there are some moments where I can imagine a local guide being really eager to score the best list, you know, for this big year, will tentatively call a bird you hear, that's then that bird. And then, so I still have till this day when I think, nah, that doesn't feel right anymore. I delete it from my list.
Yeah, because that's the thing, you know, because often you're out with local guides, and I've seen this quite a lot in tropical countries. They know, you know, the jungle inside out.
Yeah.
But take them out of the jungle. I remember being in Costa Rica, and we stepped out of the jungle because one of the guys was saying, "Oh, I want to find a first for Costa Rica." And I'm thinking, well, get out of the jungle. Look at the wetlands. Find a duck. You know.
And then they see a bird of prey.
Yeah, and they struggle with shorebirds, for example, because they don't see them all the time.
Exactly. Yeah. But, so what also so of course I had a camera with me, not a big 40 millimeter camera, simply because I only had a 30 liter backpack with me. So I had a compact camera, and I had friends traveling with me at certain stages. So I ended up actually personally documenting about 40% of all the birds I observed during my big year. And if you add all the photographs and sound recordings of my the people who traveled with me, it's well over 50% of all the birds that I observed during a big year were actually also documented. So that's also a cool extra thing, I think.
Okay, and did you actually, in terms of documenting them, was it on eBird? Did you write them down?
Yeah. So if you go to my website, which is my unpronounceable name, arjan.dwarshuis.com.
Well, I know how to say it. Dwarshuis.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you go to a page, big year. So it's very easy to find. And then you can scroll down and it says, you can check the whole list. And so it's a whole, like a personalized list, which is updated following the latest taxonomy. So I'm actually nearing 7,000 species now in a year. So that's also, but then you can see all the photographs.
Yeah, you had a few armchair ticks then. You had a few split stints. Did you find anything that was unexpected? I mean, interestingly, before you answer that question, Noah, when he did his, he famously did not see a greenshank, a common greenshank, apparently.
Nah, that's not possible.
No, apparently I've heard that he did not see a common greenshank.
No.
Anywhere he went.
There
must have been one bird that you should have seen, like a Eurasian robin, for argument's sake, you didn't see. It happens every time you do a bird race.
Yeah, so of course, like I told you, you have a short amount of time sometimes in a certain area. So I was on the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, looking for all these endemics. And of course, like the biggest and the most flashy one of all is the ocellated turkey. But so we were looking for this bird, but it was Thanksgiving around that time.
And the turkey knew as well, yeah?
I always joke that I missed that bird because of it was hiding because of Thanksgiving. But like all my friends who know nothing about birds, who go on holiday in Mexico and travel to Yucatan and visit these temple complexes, these Mayan temple complexes, they see the ocellated turkey is basically the only bird they photograph during their entire trip. And I managed to miss that bird. So, but that said, it is not a widespread species like a common greenshank. Come on, Noah.
No, apparently if you ask him, apparently he didn't see one. Look, you traveled, you covered a lot of mileage, a lot of kilometers. Now, how do you answer people that turn around and say to you, well, what are you doing this for? What's the point? Is this just you selfishly wanting to see as many birds as possible and you're burning all that carbon?
Yeah.
Can you talk your way out of that? Why do it?
Yeah, so it all started, like I said, like a childhood dream, and to be honest, when I started planning my big year, it was all about, I want to break a record, I want to travel for a year, and want to see all these amazing birds. That's it. That's how I started. But gradually, I also looked at how Noah did it, and I started thinking about, well, that's a year of travel, so I have to compensate for my carbon footprint. So I thought, I probably will have to plant trees till I'm like 90, or if I make it to 100, I have to plant trees every day to compensate for all this travel. So I found a carbon offset program to compensate for my footprint. And I found out that for like around $1,000, like I would compensate my footprint. So I thought, well, that feels wrong, you know, for traveling for a year. So I told my dad, I'm always an optimistic. I said, Dad, you know, I want to really do something back. So first off, I want to promote conservation projects around the globe. And I want to raise money for endangered birds that I see during my big year. So I came across Jim Lawrence. Do you know him?
Yes, from ex-BirdLife International. Yeah.
So I became actually, I think I can call him a friend, Jim Lawrence. And he used to be the chair, or like the president of the BirdLife Preventing Extinctions program. And well, he came up with the idea to make me a species champion. So I would be able to like visit all these amazing conservation programs, write about it and cover it in my documentary. And then also actually raise money with my travels. So I always was an optimistic or an optimist. So I told my dad, I want to raise $1 million for conservation. And he said, son, you're always an optimist like me, but you might like bring it down to 100,000 euros and you will see it is very, very difficult. And so it started off really well, you know, me raising money. In the beginning, you think you will easily get there, but you know, gradually people will lose interest. And so long story short, I managed to raise about 50,000 euros for bird conservation, for the Preventing Extinctions program, which is great. And then still now, finally, hopefully I will be able to push through to that 100,000, since I'm also donating part of the cash that I make from my book, which will arrive on May 4th. So that is important. And I think just the fact that I highlighted all these conservation programs and talked and gave exposure to all these fantastic projects, that helped a lot. But still, in hindsight, you know, now it sounds hypocritical, but I'm more and more reluctant to step into an airplane. I travel maybe once every 2 years now abroad, and I maybe I would not have done it again. You know, like now that I know what the impact of traveling for a year is.
Yeah, because
my mindset changed about that. You know, I became older, and I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the UK anyway, there's been a bit of a backlash by people when it comes to overseas traveling for nature. And also we have the British Birdwatching Fair, which is now called a Global Bird Watch, or Global Bird Fair, that had a lot of backlash from people saying, you know, how dare you invite people from other countries to try and lure us away. I mean,
Can I elaborate on that? Because I forgot one very important thing. I also think that, sorry to interrupt you, I also think that it is very important too for people to keep visiting some of these places, like the Atlantic rainforest in Brazil, the forest of Madagascar or the Philippines, because also many of these critically endangered sites, they completely rely on ecotourism. When without that, there would not be a single tree would still stand there. So also, I think like we have to like try to find a way to cope with mass tourism, but still it is important, if you travel responsibly, like spend your money in the right way when you visit these places, it is still important for people to go there, because otherwise these projects, they would not be able to like keep on going.
Yeah, I mean, that was the next question I was going to ask you, actually.
Oh, sorry.
Your view on it. No, it's fine, it's cool. Because I share the same view. I think it's important that people actually visit these sites. And I think, you know, when I look around and I talk to my friends in the travel industry, certainly in the UK, there's no shortage of people traveling. They're still going around traveling. But I think it's more important that wherever you go, you are traveling responsibly.
Yeah.
You are with a organization that is, trying to be as low carbon as possible, and also trying to, to do the right thing in terms of ecotourism, because, there's nothing worse. When I went to Sri Lanka, for example, being on a boat and trying to express to the pilot or the driver of the boat, please do not chase the whales. We're not interested.
No.
But of course, even if he doesn't, 30 other boats do,
Yeah.
And it just defies the whole reason for doing this, and obviously gives fuel to the people who are against it, because they will say, well, there you go, it's not done for nature, it's done for humans.
I agree. It is very difficult subject. Also, the same happens, of course, on the Masai Mara, or in the safari parks, when you have like 40 or 50 vehicles around one lion or a tiger. But that's like, I would say, like when you travel, also find these like more hidden places, and go to these these hidden gems in the Atlantic rainforest, for instance. I just already mentioned it, or this wonderful eco lodge in northeastern Brazil along the eastern slope of the Andes, and look for fantastic wildlife and birds there. And then you really invest in the local economy, and you really boost these conservation sites and conservation programs. But of course, who am I to judge people? I traveled for a year, so I always never try to point my finger at anyone. Who am I to do that? And I think you have made their own choices, but when you make them, try to make them as responsible as possible. Yeah,
it's a shame that there's so few women doing this. I mean, Phoebe Snettinger was the only woman I can think of. Right.
Oh, Maya Rose, that's your fellow Brit, bird girl. She's doing a wonderful job, I think.
Well, anyway, Phoebe was original in terms of the year list. I mean, she went off and traveled the world to try and see many birds. But what advice would you give someone watching this who wants to actually beat your record? What advice would you give them?
I would spend roughly in our summer around 3 months around Antarctic Peninsula, and then maybe spend a couple of months in the Saharan desert. No, I'm joking. No. Now, if you really want to do it well, of course, study my itinerary really well, and you'll be able to find some mistakes there, or mistakes, but and try not to get sick. That's very important. I was like sick for one day when I had food poisoning in India, and that was the day I was burning in Keoladeo National Park. So I was burning from a rickshaw. And every 100 meters, I had to like
stuck into a bush. Yeah.
But so now plan really well and study your predecessors. That's with any record you want to break. You have to really know, like, in and out the people and the record you are trying to break. So, and then of course the most important part of it is to just really enjoy every step of the way, and not just the big year itself, but also the planning, and afterwards writing about it and giving talks about it, like having this conversation with you. It's an experience for a lifetime, and it's such a I feel really lucky to have done such an amazing thing, and such an amazing adventure. And if I wouldn't have not have done it if I wouldn't have enjoyed every step of the way. You see how I'm smiling talking about it. It was simply a really fantastic adventure. Yeah.
I think we're all smiling because it sounds like a brilliant adventure. What was your favorite out of the 7,000 whatever species you saw? What was the favorite bird of your big year?
Well, generally speaking, my favorite group of birds were the migratory birds. So since I grew up watching migratory birds, and the way I bird in the Netherlands is I'm out every day in spring and autumn, trying to find rarities along the Dutch coast. I do not twitch. I just go birding and
You're a
look at
finder.
the sun. Yeah, that's what
You're
I
a
love.
finder. Yeah.
Like that's my favorite thing to do in the world. And then of course, seeing that all amazing spectacle of bird migration. So I can remember vividly those moments. You know, I was birding in the beginning of April. I was birding in the Bali Mountains in Ethiopia at maybe 3,000 to 4,000 meters altitude on a barren plain. And I was just like, and I saw these 3 birds approaching like from a distance, flying northwards. And it turned out to be 3 golden orioles migrating north. Yeah,
Wow.
And then like things like that. And then like when I was in the birding in the Andes in South America, and then it became August and September, and I started seeing my first black burning warblers, and like that I really, really loved. So that group of birds, and then mass concentrations of waders around Panama, or like I really like that. But of course, there are these special birds, you know, like the horned guan in Panama, or in Guatemala. That was such a fantastic bird, or the picatartes. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And if you could be anywhere on this planet right now, where would you be?
Well, it sounds really strange for someone who traveled all over the world for a year, but I most want to be on the eastern tip of Vlieland, the island in the Wadden Sea, in medio October during a fallout of autumn migration, looking for rarities. And then you have this, sometimes you have these magical days, you'll know them, David, where you can hear we call it the Ritzel index in Dutch, the phonetic birders. And it's like the index of how much sound there is in the shrubs. And then you have these magical days where you go out and you know this is going to be a mental day. And one of those days on Vlieland in the 2nd or 3rd week of October, that is for me the pinnacle of bird watching.
Fantastic. All right, just to let the Zoomers know, we've got a load of more people coming up, all I'm sure as exciting as Arjan. We've got Quang Ho. I mean, I can't pronounce her name, but she's from Thailand, and she's going to be talking about the spoonbill sandpiper, and that's on Thursday, the 2nd of February. We've got this guy called Juan Benito from Scotland, from Spain, and he's got this amazing book which is all about the birds of a particular time after the dinosaurs, and that's going to be incredible. My good friend Mike Dilger, presenter, wildlife presenter, he's going to be here on Thursday, the 16th of February, talking about 1,000 flowers and plants in 1 year. On the 22nd of February, we've got Nicholas Barbara and Alice Tribe from BirdLife Malta talking about the situation in Malta at the moment. And then we go into March. So we've got loads of people. Look it up on the on my website, theurbanbirdworld.com, to find out who's coming next. There's a load of people. Please support it. Fantastic. So Arjan, thank you so much for such a entertaining in conservation world. The book's great. I can't wait for the English version to come out. It's going to be amazing. It's really exciting, and I love the way you kind of talk about the history of some of the birds as well. So it's not just a list of species you've seen, and it's interspersed with reflections from your past as well. So it's a lovely book. So well done.
I love that. Thank you so much for those kind words. And it was a really lovely conversation. I really enjoyed it, and it made me relive my big year a bit. So thanks for that.
I'm looking forward to meeting you in person. I want to go birding with you. I'm coming to the Netherlands.
Well, that, and also I will be at the British Bird Fair in July. I will give probably they will, because we have an English version of the documentary of my big year that you can actually also watch on my website. And then it costs €5, but it goes to the Preventing Extinctions program. So But we will show it and probably do a Q&A there, or I'll give a talk, and I definitely do a book signing there. So I will
Well,
be at the British Bird Fair.
Well, you'll be signing my copy of the book as well, for sure. So
You'll have a free signed copy from me, David.
thank you.
I promise you that.
Zoomers, thank you so much for watching tonight. Really appreciate that. And all the Zoomers in the future, or the YouTubers, thank you for watching as well. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget, keep looking up.